Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, where we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the settling of the American Wild West. Each Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be sharing a historical legend and a living legend. Someone from history and someone living that Western lifestyle today, keeping it alive for the future generation. We hope you'll join us on Thursday. If not, we'll see you on the trail. Hello, Wild West Diversity, family, friends, and fans. Well, we're so excited today. This is episode 38. I can't believe we've done 38 episodes, but today we are honoring Mr. Cleo Hearn, Mr. Black Rodeo. Cleo Hearn is the founder of the Cowboys of Color Rodeo Tour. He basically is celebrating 50 years as a rodeo producer. And he's going to be inducted this weekend into the Rodeo Hall of Fame at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. And so that's why we're on today. And we have a few of Cleo's friends that are going to be on here with us, and they're going to be telling their Cleo stories. I'm going to do a little introduction, a little history about Cleo. And then we're going to just share some stories about Cleo for y'all because he's touched people's lives all across the world. And he's living this legacy, and we are so grateful to be able to capture some of that legacy and share some of that legacy with you, with our viewers. And if you're listening on a podcast, that's great. We'll hope you go to our YouTube channel at Wild West Diversity and subscribe, and you can go back and watch the other 37 episodes. We've got some great episodes with Ed and Kevin and Coy and Burton, Gilliam, and Oba Babatunda. We've got actors, we've got musicians, we've got Western wear retailers, just all kinds of people keeping that Western lifestyle alive. And as you know, we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the American Wild West. So let's talk about Cleo today. We've got a few photos, I think, maybe, but basically Cleo met a black cowboy when he was 9 years old. And from that time, he always wanted to be a cowboy. And he's really funny because people always ask him, Mr. Hearn, how long have you been a black cowboy? And he'll say, well, I've been black all my life, but I've been a cowboy since I was 9, or I wanted to be a cowboy. And he actually did. When he was 16, he entered his first rodeo. He didn't have a horse, but luckily there was a guy there named Roy LeBlanc. And any of y'all that know any rodeo history know the LeBlanc family out of Okmulgee, Oklahoma. They've been putting on a black rodeo up there for over 50 years as well. And like you say, that was one of the first rodeos Cleo did. Then he went in the service. He went to school on a rodeo scholarship. They canceled the rodeo club. He got mad and quit school, and he got drafted. And so there you saw him in his uniform there. But when he was rodeoing, I mean, in the military, the years he was in the military as a member of one of the first 8 African Americans to be in the Presidential Honor Guard with President John F. Kennedy, he always rodeoed on the weekends, and he took busloads of guys. They would get, $50 or a 6-pack of beer and give it to the driver, load up all the guys in the unit. They'd go up to New Jersey to Cowtown Coliseum, and Cleo would rope, and they would pay his entry fees for him because he was bringing all these guys in the audience that were eating and drinking and being merry during the rodeo. So he never quit rodeoing from the time he was 16, and he roped up till, I guess, 2019. And then after that, he was actually doing a commercial for Ford Tractor. They were looking for a black cowboy. They saw him at a rodeo in Madison Square Garden. And one of the guys in the back was a higher level person. And he asked him what he did. And he told him he had a business degree because he had quit school 26 days before Kennedy was killed and went back to college and got his degree in business administration. And he got hired at Ford, and he worked with Ford for over 33 years. And here you can see even Ford did these newsletters and these pictures and these stories on him because, he wasn't just a sales guy for Ford. He had this other life going on, and they really appreciated that. And they really supported him all those years. And in the early years, they were one of our big sponsors for the rodeo tour when we put the tour together and we did a 7-city tour. So those were exciting times, and we've met all of these people along the way. Kevin is our rodeo announcer. Ed came down and did some of our filming for us and has some of our original film work. David's with us today. David was one of our sponsors during our tour when we went to Austin and Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston and San Antonio. And so I really appreciate these guys coming on today to tell their story about Cleo, because, you know, he has a great legacy. He was one of the very first. He was the first African-American to win a national championship at the National Western in Denver, 1970. And kind of the same thing. By that time, he had horses, but he didn't have the entry fee. And someone else helped pay the entry fee, and then they split the money when Cleo won. So, like I say, Roy knew Cleo, had heard about Cleo. He knew he was committed, and he was determined, and he practiced all the time, and he wanted to be a calf roper so bad. Roy let him have a ride on his first horse. He loaned his horse to Cleo. And I think he did pretty well, even at that very first rodeo. I don't think he won, but, you know, he did well enough for people to take notice. So, and then there's the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum logo, which is the ceremony they're going to have Friday night. They're going to have a reception. And on Saturday, they have their big black tie gala. And for some of y'all who know Lane Frost was a great bull rider that was actually killed by a bull in a ride, and there's a movie about his life. His wife is the one that nominated Cleo for this National Cowboy and Western Museum induction. She was the one that wrote the letters and all of those kinds of things behind the scenes. So they've been great friends all of these years, knew each other, saw each other at Cheyenne and other rodeos. And so great. Glad to have you guys here today. Thanks so much for joining us. So who wants to go first and tell their Cleo story?
I can go first.
David, jump in here and tell us how you met Cleo or how you even got involved in the rodeo. I'm not sure I even know that story.
You know, thank you, first of all. I apologize. I'm in my car. I'm on my way to another meeting, and I had to pull over. I mean, I couldn't miss this opportunity to give respect and honor Cleo. You know, I'm so happy he's getting into the Hall of Fame, and but thank you very much for just real quick. So I've been doing promotions and sponsorships, working with multicultural consumers and brands for my whole career. And right now I'm a senior director of multicultural marketing with Bacardi, and we do events all the time. We sponsor things all the time. But I have to say right off the top, working with you, Liz, working with Cleo and the boys and everybody on the Cowboys of Color sponsorships we did a few years ago, by far, probably the most impactful thing I remember most. It's just unbelievable opportunity to work with Cleo and everybody. And I don't have a particular story, but just wanted everybody to know that of all the things we do, I remember that. You know, just what we were able to accomplish, how we connected the dots between the Black Cowboys and history and Cleo's history and our consumers out at these events, by far probably the most impactful thing. So
and the brands you were promoting at the time, that was great.
It always just worked out, and it really wasn't, you know, the events were great, but just being able to spend a few minutes with Cleo as he's running around doing 1,000 things at these events meant a lot to me. And my daughter now is 16, and she met Cleo when she was probably 8 or 9, and she just still remembers, still asks. 2 months don't go by where she said, "Hey, when are we gonna do another Black Cowboys event, rodeo?" And so, I mean, for her, and now to be honest, she's in high school and she wants to bring her friends because she remembers the impact there and remembers riding out in the truck in the beginning with Cleo and you guys. So, really, I could just say Cleo is, while I don't know him that well, I mean, probably one of the people I respect most, just of what he's done, what he's gone through, and the legacy. He's still doing it, right? The film he did a few weeks ago or a month ago, I mean, that was amazing to see that documentary of Cleo and you guys. So still today, just so, I just can't say enough about Cleo.
Yeah, he still has that competitive thing, doesn't he? I mean, you see that competitive fire in his eye. He's 83, and I mean, if he could get on the horse today and go, he would. And he really wasn't supposed to be roping in that episode because he has a thing in his neck and his arm. But he grabbed the rope and threw it out there and caught it the first time, and everybody in the crew just fell out. They're like, "Oh my god!"
That's amazing. He's just
boys have been roping and they've been missing, So he
Oh,
said he had to come over and give them some pointers, He came over and said, "Now listen, man, you got to wait just a little bit, just hold up just a second longer and then let it go." I mean, he was still out there, teaching them, and everybody standing around just about fainted when he roped that steer. It was a fake one, but I mean, he
yeah.
was just standing there and let the rope go, and it's that muscle memory. He did it every day, and the neighbors even said, we sat out and watched, we drank coffee and looked out our window, and it didn't matter if it was raining, if it was snowing, the sun was shining. Cleo was out there practicing. They
Oh,
said
that's great.
every day, every morning they looked out, he was out there. Every night when they went, looked out there, he was out there. And he was just
Mm,
so focused. That's why he was the best. That's why he won the championship. And that's why he
yeah.
can still do it today, without
Well,
thinking.
listen, parting words, just, again, thank you for the opportunity to come on. Cleo is such an inspiration to me and my family now. So
Yeah.
thank you. And again, great to see everybody. And I'm going to drop off in a few minutes, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. Appreciate you joining us. All right, Ed, Kevin, who's up next?
I'll go up next, Liz.
Okay.
I'm probably the youngest one of knowing Cleo, but you know what, Liz? I thank you for bringing me into the circle of meeting him, because as a young boy growing up in New York, I remember the Marlboro Man's commercial.
Right.
And to say many years later, I meet the person who was on that horse in the commercial is so cool, because, being from the Caribbean, the horses down there and all the things I've been through. When I came to Texas and I met Cleo at the Cowboys of Color rodeo, which was Martin Luther King's holiday when I came down there prior to COVID, and we went to his house in Lancaster and I sat there and we did the interview with him. It was like sitting in a room with royalty, because we have to understand that we have people in our history as people of color, as African Americans. We have people in our history that's still alive. And when we get an opportunity to sit there and listen to them tell us the history instead of reading it in a book, it's way different. I had that opportunity to sit with Coretta Scott King and listen to her talk about Martin Luther King. And so when I was sitting in his house and I was listening to him talk, and I had an opportunity to ask him some questions, I felt like a little boy in a candy store. So because when you meet someone like that, you say, wait a second, he did this, he did that. I read this in books, I saw this in television, and this is the man who actually did it, or he was responsible for getting it done. Then you realize you are touching history. And that's something you cannot put a price on. And I am so blessed that being a photographer, being a graphic artist, running my own company has put me in that position. And when I heard Dave was talking about the dedication he had, and I heard you talking about the dedication that Cleo had, it made me think about Kobe Bryant. When you meet people who are so good at what they do, you realize they sacrifice every day. Every day they sacrifice to make it great, not to make it good, to make it great. So when you're in their presence, you know you have to be on your A game, and you'll take it. For me, I'm taking mental notes. How did that person live to do all these things so great that we can sit there and embrace, and the sunlight, the shine from them is just touching us. And you say, like, I could go now to tell people I met Cleo Hearn. They said, "Who's Cleo Hearn?" I said, and I started telling them who. I said, "Oh yeah, is that who that was?" I said, "Yeah, I met him." And one of the first things people used to ask, they said, "Is he still alive?" I said, "Yeah, he's still alive." And and because history has not been kind to us as people of color on how it depicts us. So when we have people like Cleo Hearn, sometimes they get pushed to the back, and it's up to us, like what David said. It's up to us to bring them to the forefront and let our children see them, because like David said, his daughter now is talking about her friends and so forth. So that's what we call paying it forward. When we pay it forward, we are paying homage to our legacy on the things that was done before we even knew the person, or before we were even alive. Because we gotta remember what Cleo did was very unique. Because I remember when he was telling me about he brought the rodeo to Harlem. I remember that because I was living in New York. I remember that, but I didn't know that was good. So now I'm sitting here, the guy who actually brought it. I'm like, whoa, wait a second, you tell me I remember that, And so when we are able to sit and talk and be in the room with someone like Cleo Hearn, it's a blessing. We should never take that kind of blessing for granted, because tomorrow is not promised to no one. So when I was in Lancaster at his home, and then we went outside, and his granddaughter went on the horse, and we were out there with him, and he was walking around talking. I got all that video. I look at that video a lot. I mean, we edited the show, but there's a lot of it that is not in the show. So I feel very blessed that I have it. So I kind of keep it to myself a little bit. But it's my candy store. It's my candy store. So so I thank you, Liz, for giving me that opportunity. We had him on our radio show. And and just listen to him and being able to say, I met a living legend. Because people use that word a lot, but people like Cleo they're truly living legends, and we have to honor them and embrace them and enjoy the time we have with them. Like I said, and it's because tomorrow's not promised to none of us. So I thank you, and I thank all what you're doing down there. I look forward to coming back to Texas again, hopefully for another rodeo. Because I've never been in the ring with the Cowboys. So to stand there and Cleo's son comes on the horse, he's riding the horse right by me, and I'm like, that's Cleo's son. And he gets off the horse and he comes in and does an interview with me. And I'm standing there talking, and I'm there in the ring before everyone come in. And I'm like, I'm a kid in the candy store. I'm a kid in the candy store. Because how many people get to go down in the ring and talk to Cleo's son and be around the Cowboys, and I'm taking pictures, I'm doing videos for So I sit there and I thank God for that opportunity, and I thank you, Liz, for giving me that opportunity to meet him on that level, because it was a very unique time to be there with him. So thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, thank you, Ed. Yeah, we appreciate it. And like you say, because of great filmmakers like Ed, we've got footage and we've got interviews and we've got things of Cleo. And actually, the story David's talking about is the Marlboro people came down and did a legacy piece for the National Day of the Cowboy. And, you can go to Marlboro.com. You have to put in your email and maybe choose something to smoke, even if you don't smoke. And we're not promoting smoking or anything, but we do want to acknowledge that they appreciated this history. They found this picture of Cleo in the archives, and they were like, who is this guy? Is this guy still alive? And then they went on and they saw our show where we talked about him, Ed. They saw one of the first or second, third shows that we did here, and they called us. I said, yeah, he's still alive, and we'd be happy for you to come. And they said, we want to come and do a story, a legacy piece. And so we're grateful for that legacy piece, because, he was. And you could see the fire in his eye and that competitive spirit when he was, when they were asking him the questions, and then just to be around and to have all these people. He was so funny because he was sitting in the driveway and these cars just kept pulling in because they had about like a 50 member crew, 50 member crew came, and he was like, who are all these people? And then of course he just sat on the patio and they just sat around him and he told stories. And I said, we need to be filming this. And instead of, we went out to the barn and we did all the, the setup stuff too, but just the fact that you sat there with like 15 or 20 people, young people. They were all under 50. A lot of them were under 30, and they were like, who is this guy, and why are we here, and what are we doing? And it was just a great experience. And so go look at that film. It's under stories. Once you get into the website, you can click on stories, and it should be the very first thing that comes up, I think. And they've been recutting it. So there are different stories. So even if you saw a story, you should probably go back, because there's a different story, because they're editing it in different ways and reposting it. And so you may see a different version of the story than you saw. You might see a similar picture, but the conversation is going to be a little bit different. So we're grateful to have that. ESPN, they did some footage on it too. And so there's an ESPN, film out there as well that they aired in June for Juneteenth. So you can look those things up and find those things. And really glad about that, because they did a great job of, promoting Bud Bram, who's one of Cleo's great friends that helped him establish this rodeo, Texas Black Cowboy Rodeo Association. Murtis is on there, Charlie Sampson's on there, Murtis Diamond, Charlie Sampson, they're our Black Bull Rider champions. And so there are interviews with them in addition to Cleo and the LeBlanc family out of Okmulgee that's been putting on the Black Rodeo up there for years. So it was really nice to see some of our other people get acknowledged in this ESPN story. So we appreciate it so much, even though they didn't talk about the rodeo as much as they should have. But that's here nor there. So Kevin
Yes.
Woodson, you're up next. So which story are you gonna tell?
Oh, Dave and Ed, how you doing? Liz, I got a book I could write. Tell Cleo Hearn stories. I refer to Cleo as a second dad, actually. I guess my picture's not coming up. That might be well for the show. So,
No, we can see you.
Oh, you can see me? Okay.
Yeah,
Well, the stories I'll tell, when I was a kid growing up in St. Louis, I was always into horses, rodeo, that type of thing. And they had a show that came on called In the News. And that's where they would show these special projects and things that would be interesting to kids. And they talked about this big black rodeo that was coming to Harlem. And little did I know that I would later meet that guy, that would be Cleo Hearn. Of course, I always say God ordains things. I had a second run in because one day, this is in the 80s now, I was already fighting bulls and doing all that kind of stuff. And I went just as a spectator to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. There Cleo Hearn was rodeoing. So Bob Tallman was doing the rodeo announcing from horseback. And so he rides up and interviews Cleo. So there's my second run in with Cleo. So by the time that I get to Texas for my career, which, is outside of rodeo, I'm down at one of the shows, and Art Burton, who was a buddy of mine and a historian, said to me, he said, man, when you get down there, you got to look up Cleo Hearn. And I said, oh, yeah, I've heard of that guy. I've heard of him. And so I looked up Cleo. And the next thing you know, Cleo and I and Wendell and all of them, we were just pals, And then Cleo, Cleo's got away when he's got something real important that he thinks is important. He'll kind of whisper it to you. And, and he would whisper to me. So it was about 1995. And he said, man, since you do what you do, he says, you ever thought about announcing rodeos? And I said, well, no, I've never thought about it. He said, I want you to announce my rodeo in Fort Worth. And so from that time on, I don't know if the rodeo was any better for it, but there it was. And so that's me. And it was such a piece of cake because I'm a broadcaster career-wise. I'm a cowboy, might as well say career-wise. So you mean you want to pay me to stand up there and talk about what I know and do? Okay. And the rest is history. So I've been there ever since. So Cleo always told me that he always hired me because all the good announcers were busy. So they were all booked up. So I said, well, yeah, I'll stick in. He said, did you come? Yeah, I'll come back.
Yeah, that way you don't get the big head. Charge him more.
That's right.
He was managing the budget. He was managing the budget on that one.
Absolutely. And his late wife, Miss Verna, it was funny one time we were at the Dallas rodeo some years ago. And she said, I can always tell when Cleo has you on the telephone. She says, because he's just laughing and cackling. And we would get together and rib one another and talk about, and just have a good time. And every time we did a rodeo that Monday, the rodeo was, of course, Saturday, that Monday, we were on the phone. And he says, what do you think? And then we kind of go over, and we would just have a good time and we give our reassessment and just great time. I could, maybe that's my calling, write a book about Cleo Hearn stories.
There you go. I think so.
Yeah.
That'd be great. That would be great. Well, I love it. And that's it. The thing about it is, and what's really interesting too, guys, for me, I mean, obviously I get a lot of people go, well, what's a white girl like you, doing black rodeo? Because in the initial days, it was called Texas Black Invitational Rodeo because the first rodeos we did were for the African-American Museum at Fair Park. And that's how I got involved because I was their agency and I provided them all their print collaterals and other stuff. And they said, go sit in on this rodeo meeting. We just fill in for a guy that's out of town. Well, that was 30 years ago. And here I still am because like y'all of us, we were just sucked in. We're so enamored of sitting at Cleo and listening to him and being able to work with him and do. And I still hear stories and I go, how come I never heard that story? How come you never told me that? But the thing in all these 30 years, he never, until the last year or two, mentioned any of the hard stuff. He never mentioned any of the negative stuff. I mean, we knew it happened. I mean, he would say, he didn't get to rope during the regular rodeos. I mean, he'd say something like that, but that'd be it. He never said another word about it. He didn't go on. He didn't do, he was so totally focused on just being the best cowboy. And same thing, he didn't plan to produce rodeos. He wasn't going to produce rodeos. They came to him wanting to produce a rodeo, and he said, I'm a cowboy. I just want to be the best calf roper in the world. I don't put on rodeos. And they said, if it changed one kid's life, would you do it? He was like, whoa, and so he came back on the plane from New York, and he by the time he got here, he knew, he called his guys up. He called Bud, he called Marvell, he called Murtis. He said, guys, Rufus Green Sr., Rufus Jr.'s father, was a great calf roping trainer and barrel racing trainer, and called Rufus Jr., Sr., and said, we got to go, guys. Got to go to New York and take a rodeo. So they got 100 black cowboys together from Texas and Oklahoma, and they went and put this rodeo on. And then, like you say, astonishingly enough, Ali's in the airport. He's coming through the airport. He sees Woody Strode. Woody Strode's an actor that was in a lot of the movies, the military movies. He was always the Indian Scout or the Black Scout or Black Indian Scout and the Westerns and stuff. And he was going overseas to do a spaghetti Western. And he saw Ali. He said, what are you doing? He said, I'm going down to Harlem to see a black rodeo, some black cowboys. He said, are you crazy? There ain't no black cowboys in Harlem. He said, there's 100 there today, and I'm going to see them. And Woody says, I'm going with you. So he canceled. He got in the car with Ali. They went downtown. Ali's, Cleo has this big roar, and he says he's thinking something the bulls have got out, and something bad has happened, because he was down at the television station doing the interview, and he comes back, and all these people are screaming and hollering. And he gets out of the car and he goes over, and it's Ali boxing with the Cowboys, the bullfighters, the other guys, they're all doing their thing there. And then they got Ali on the horse, and we got pictures of Ali riding down Broadway, or riding through Harlem down past the marquee, because, they got him up on a horse, and he, put a hat on him. Fantastic. But, so, those, like you say, priceless stories that you never would have heard before. But like you say, he never let any of those obstacles stop him. He was just so committed to being the best and working hard and living life. And he would tell you that he's lived his dream. He tells the kids all the time, we go out and talk to schools, have something that you love, do it with people that you love, and you'll be happy all your life. That's all you need to be happy. You don't need $200 tennis shoes. You don't need this. You don't need that. You need something to be passionate about. He was always passionate about the horses. That's what he loved. He loved the horses. And then he, like you say, once he started roping, he loved that, and he loved the competitiveness of it. You could see it in his eyes still, even today. So I appreciate y'all being here. Like you say, Cleo's going to be inducted. We have a new website. It's a redone website. It's basically our Cowboys of Color Rodeo.com, cowboysofcolorrodeos.com, and you can go there, and if you will, put your name in. We'll put you on our list, and you'll be on our VIP list. And of course, the next rodeo that we have coming up is Fort Worth. That's going to be on January the 16th in 2023 at the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, on Martin Luther King Day. And that rodeo Kevin, starts at 2:00? It's an afternoon matinee show.
No, 2 p.m.
Okay, and so it usually goes from about 2 to 4, and that's because the kids are out of school usually on that day. So we got a lot of seniors come, we got a lot of kids come, and that helps kick off the season with the Fort Worth Stock Show. They have the Mexican Rodeo on Sunday, the Ranch Rodeo on Saturday night, and then the Cowboys of Color for Martin Luther King Day. So that's great legacy. We've been there with them 10 years, going on 11 years this year. And we did state fair rodeos for the last couple of years, and those have gone really well. So we'll still do Dallas. I think we'll do Oklahoma City the first week in May. We may be changing Dallas up and bring it back into May or June earlier instead of Juneteenth weekend, because just a lot of competition. A lot of other rodeos going on. A lot of people have family events and stuff. So we may change up Dallas, but we'll probably always do Dallas because they were the very first in 1985 after they did the rodeo in Harlem. They started in 1985 with Dallas. And so, it's hard to let go of those legacies too, those people that help you get started. So we've got a couple of minutes left, and that's it. If anybody wants to say one last thing to our audience, our viewers, this will be recorded. It also gets pulled down as a podcast. So if you want to know about Cleo, it's Cleo Hearn, CleoHearn. You can Google his name. All of our media stuff's going to come up in addition to our interviews and things like that. And so if you'll keep him and your families in your prayer, the boys are taking over. We're in this transition of handoff, and Cleo's got 4 boys. They all grew up in the rodeo business. They've always been working with him in the background on the rodeos all these years. And that's Harlan, Robbie, Eldon, and Wendell. And so you'll see them if you come out to the rodeo, and they're taking on their dad's legacy. And then we got the grandkids, Rachel and Taylor. Obviously, Taylor's not roping right now because he's pitching for the Texas Rangers on the baseball and the MLB, Major League Baseball. But we got grandsons. I think Charles is on here, and Cody, the grandsons. They participate with us. They help us with our social media and things like that. And they're going to be helping us with our website. We do a man on the ranch kind of thing, and Charles is doing that for us. He's the great grandson, so Harlan's grandson, and Leo's great grandson. So they're keeping that legacy going to generation to generation. So thanks so much for joining us. We got one more minute. We got to go. So everybody say their last thing, and then I'll close this out.
So listen, again, I appreciate it, Liz, and my best to Cleo and the family. And definitely will see you out there at the next rodeo.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks, Dave. Hugs to your girls, too.
Well, thanks, Liz, for inviting me on. It's always good to talk about Cleo, living legend, and God bless. And let's keep on riding into the sunset.
That's it. Kevin?
And as I always say, Chief, as I call him, I said, if anybody deserves it, you do. Congratulations.
Amen. Well, thanks so much. So this has been Liz Lawless with Wild West Diversity. We're here every Thursday at 5 p.m. To 5:30. So come back and see us. If you missed an episode, you can always go back to our YouTube channel at Wild West Diversity and check out those past recordings. You'll be interested. There'll be stories you haven't heard before, and there'll be some historical stories and some other living legends besides Cleo that you need to know about. So thanks so much. We'll see you Thursday. If not, we'll see you on the trail. Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, where we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the settling of the American Wild West. Each Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be sharing a historical legend and a living legend. Someone from history and someone living that Western lifestyle today, keeping it alive for the future generation. We hope you'll join us on Thursday. If not, we'll see you